Okay, in this course of our learning, we shall have the Beitza Mikdash. Should be a full shleima for everyone that needs. We're going to start off Beitza Mikdash of the Mishnah. Okay. 22b. Okay. The Mishnah says after Amar Shleish Dvarim. Yeah, we're continuing with a very interesting Rabbi Gamliel in the last Mishnah that was Machmir like Beishamai. Now we go to Rabbi Gamliel being Mekel. Rabbi Gamliel is now lenient. Rabbi Gamliel says three things that are lenient. You're allowed to sweep the room of the beds. This is actually not the bedroom. This is the dining room. And it was, they would eat on beds, couches. So you're allowed to sweep this room. Talking about on Yom Tov. Menichem es hamugmar b'Yom Tov. Maybe on Shabbos also. The sweeping may be on Shabbos also. The mugmar is a spice, not a spice, a perfume. A perfume that you're allowed to put perfume on the coals that would like a tobacco sort of, and it would make the house smell nice. And on the night of Pesach, he would also roast a gedim makulas, a goat. Now, what does makulas mean? It's different interpretations, but whatever the case is, it's very similar to the way the korban was roasted. The korban Pesach was roasted. So makulas, according to one pshat over here, it means that he has his armor hanging on the side. So that means that the innards are hanging out. Yeah, okay. So basically it's roasted whole. These three things the Chachamim forbade. What are the three things again? Sweeping the floor, using perfume, and roasting the goat. Amar Rabasi. Now we go to the Gemara. Rabasi says, "Machlekes legamer, avalariach devrei kol muter." When we spoke about the mugmar, which is the perfume that was used with this sort of like herbs that were put on the coals, that's because you wanted to perfume the clothing, but not because you wanted the smell right then. You see, there's two issues here with mugmar on Yom Tov. One could be that you're only allowed to do on Yom Tov things that are eichel nefesh, that are necessary, but that not necessarily necessary, that are for eating type of things and for benefit, but it needs to be shavel akal. It needs to be something that everyone does, that common people do. Now, mugmar, the perfume, is not necessarily so common. So the Chachamim would forbid it because it's not a common thing. There's just a few people that, you go to shul, there's a few men in a frum shul, but there are very few that have perfume, cologne. When I come home, it was a shul, there was a Sephardic guy that gave me a big, like I come home, I say, "Oh, you met Dr. So-and-so." So there's a few people that have cologne. It doesn't have to be. It's not for everyone. So therefore, on Yom Tov, when it comes to a fire, that becomes an issue. It's not shavel akol. Ravasi is not learning like that. Ravasi is learning that the issue is not that it's not shavel akol, that it's not a common thing. That's not the issue. The issue is that you're preparing clothing, you're machshir clothing, you're masakin the clothing. It's only because you're doing it under clothing. If you want to make a fragrance in the room, then it would be permissible. Here we're not making a fragrance in the room. Here you're just doing it to make the clothing smell. Make the clothing smell, that's a problem on Yom Tov. What about to make a fragrance in the room? Everyone would allow it. That's Rav Asi's pshat. Meisvei, it's a lenient view. Meisvei, the Gemara has a question. Ein mechabdim besamitis b'Yom Tov. We quote a brisa. The first part of the brisa is not a question on us, on Rav Asi. It's just like an introduction to the second part. You're not allowed to sweep the floor, but Rav Gamliel, the house of Rav Gamliel would. What was the issue with sweeping the floor? There may be uneven floor, and when you sweep it, you may be filling in holes. Right? That could be an issue of building on Shabbos. Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok. Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok says, now he was the son of Rabbi Tzadok. Rabbi Tzadok was the one that fasted for 40 years. The Beis Hamikdash shouldn't be destroyed. Now, he says like this: I went with my father to Rabbi Gamliel's house many times. They did not sweep the floor on Yom Tov. They had it swept from before Yom Tov. They spread sheets down on the floor. The following day, when the guests came in, they didn't sweep it on Yom Tov. They just took off the sheets, and lo and behold, under the floor, under the sheets, it was all swept because they swept it yesterday.
Yeah. It's interesting that they also have
Right.
Is this halacha derived from Mishnah that like you want to go there or something like
So far, no, because here it's a malacha that comes along with it. You're actually burning something. Because the malacha, that's the issue. If the issue was putting on clothing, then being stocking clothing, then it would be a problem putting perfume on to spray your clothing. We're going to see that it's probably not the issue here. Rabasi says that right now, but that's okay. They responded to Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok Amalai Imkena Shabbos Matalasas came. What are you telling me? That Rabbi Gamliel he wouldn't sweep the floor. He didn't sweep the floor on Yom Tov. It was swept from before Yom Tov. That if that's the case, then why is this discussion regarding Yom Tov? That could be on Shabbos also, because there's no malacha that's done yet, and we know that there's a that this was something that was done specifically on Yom Tov. And that's our answer, right? Beis Hamikdash was on Yom Tov, not on Shabbos. Okay, the next thing is ve'in menichim es hamugbar b'Yom Tov. Can't put out that perfume, that fragrance on Yom Tov. So Beis Gamliel menichin, but the house of Gamliel was lenient and they would. So in other words, we have a Tanakama here that says that there's a machlekes the Chachamim and Rabbi Gamliel, and Amar Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadok, Eliezer bar Tzadok. I went many times to Rabbi Gamliel's house with my father. They didn't have the perfume on Yom Tov. Ella Neviim are the skies shel barzel. Sounds like these pipes and of iron. They would fill it up with smoke from before Yom Tov. That means the fragrance. The paikim nikveim, they would stuff up the holes. And Me'erev Yom Tov. And the following day, they would open up the holes. Nimtza abayas miskamer meila. And the house would become perfumed. Incredible.
So it's mutar.
Well, Rabbi Eliezer is actually being strict because he's saying that Rabbi Gamliel did not do anything that would require leniency. What he was doing was perfectly permissible. And the Tanakama is saying, no, Rabbi Eliezer was actually lenient and he would use Mugmar on Yom Tov. And Rabbi Eliezer Bar Tzadok saying, no, he never did that. So which comes out that we don't have a lenient opinion according to Rabbi Eliezer Bar Tzadok. Whatever the case is, what was the usage according to Rabbi Eliezer Bar Tzadok of the perfume? Was it for the house or was it for clothing? Apparently it's for the house. Amrulai, they said to Rabbi Eliezer Bar Tzadok, if you're just opening up the plugs that are in the holes, so then you can do that on Shabbos as well. And we were learning that this was just on Yom Tov. Okay, now we have a question on Rav Asi, because the machlekes, according to Rav Asi, was only about making the clothing perfume. But here we see from this brisa that the discussion between the Tanakama and Rabbi Eliezer Bar Tzadok is about making the house perfume, where the Tanakama holds that there's a machlekes Rabbi Gamliel and the Chachamim. We have to adjust the way that we learned this. We have to say it the following: Amar Abasi machlekes laria. The machlekes is if you want to perfume the house, and what would that be? Why is there a machlekes? Because on Yom Tov you're only allowed to do things that everyone that's something that's beneficial to everyone. Avalegamer aser, but if you want to perfume the clothing, that's a separate problem, and no one allows that. Which would mean that Rabbi Gamliel considered the house smelling nice as shavalakol, and the Rabbanan say it's not shavalakol. Not everyone needs perfume in the house. Yeah, I can see people arguing about this. Okay. Air fresheners. Okay. This doesn't mean are you allowed to smoke. Although they had these people years ago that were so addicted to smoking that before Shabbos they would blow smoke into a bottle like this thing, and they would put a cap on it, and on Shabbos they would cold smoke. But yeah, I don't think that's now they would have to use a patch or something or a gum.
But this is before tobacco.
Right. This is mala ashen. This is smoking fruits and foods. The discussion here is that the smoke added a flavor. So we're talking about you're allowed to cook, you're allowed to bake, and you're allowed to do all of those things on Yom Tov because you need to eat, and that's oichal nefesh and it's shavalakol. The question is, what about the flavor that the smoke adds? Is that yeah, you're on the floor. I was just no. So is that a shavalakol, adding the flavor to those fruits that you get from the smoking? That's something that's really necessary. That's really so common. Smoked fruits, yeah. So are you allowed to do this on Yom Tov? Rabbi Yirmiyah Barabba Amarav Aser. Basically, Rav says that it's Aser. Shmuel Amar Mutter, Shmuel says that it's permissible. You follow? So machlekes Rav and Shmuel. That's easy. What's the machlekes based on? It's based on Shmuel's opinion is that this is Eichel Nefesh. Poor people don't do this regularly. Well, that's because they don't have it available. If it would occur that they should have it, they would eat it also. It's just that they happen not to have it. He compares it to they usually don't have deer, venison. Usually don't have deer, but if a deer happened to walk into their backyard, then they would have it. So it doesn't mean that it's not shavalakol. It's just that it doesn't happen all the time. But if everyone would have it, if they would have it, they would eat it. So that's Shmuel's opinion. Now Rav Huna Amar Aser. Rav Huna happens to be a student of Rav, and he's explaining the prohibition. Rav Huna Amar Aser b'nei shemachaba. What's the problem of smoking fruits? you're putting on some sort of herbs or wood under the fruits, and it's going to add a flavor to them. He says because when you put on those herbs onto the coals, it extinguishes the coals the first second that it goes on it. This is mechabe, extinguishing. Amalei Rav Nachman says to Rav Huna, what happens after it gets extinguished? It then flares up and it starts to smoke those herbs that are on the coals. Why are you saying because it's extinguishing? It's also because you're burning. Yeah, I was going in order. The first thing is that it extinguishes. Then afterwards, it starts burning it. Okay.
Smoking could create fragrance also.
Yeah, but I don't know if it does a air freshener fragrance. So it's for the fruit. Yeah, we'll have to try it out. Right. Yeah, but I don't know if it was the same fragrance I used for the house or if it was specifically for the.
But isn't it from a pre-existing flame?
Yeah, we are using a pre-existing flame. The coal is already burning. Problem is when you add the herbs onto it, it extinguishes for a moment the strength of that heat until it flares up again. So when you first put it on, it extinguishes and then it burns.
But it's okay to burn if it's already from a pre-existing flame.
It's okay to what? I'm sorry?
To burn.
Yeah. Yeah, it's okay to burn.
So not everyone will appreciate
The problem is if you hold that it's not a shovel akol, if it's not something that everyone does, so then it's not something that could be done for Yom Tov. One of the restrictions of Yom Tov is it needs to be oichel nefesh, something that's necessary, like food type things, and it has to be shovel akol. Right?
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
So Rav holds that it's not shovel akol. Only like the wealthy people would have smoked fruits. And Shmuel says, well, the poor don't have it regularly, but if they would have it, they would eat it. So it is shovel akol. So Shmuel allows it, but Rav doesn't allow it. But not allowing it is because of what? Which malacha is it? So Rav Huna says it's mechaber. Rav Nachman says it's maver. He says, well, it's maver also, but I'm starting with mechaber. Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, al gabi gachelas aser, al gabi cheres mutter. The whole problem is when it's on a coal, because it's extinguishing and then it burns up. But let's say you were putting it on cheres, on earthenware, probably the coals were underneath, and this earthenware got very hot. When you put the herbs on it, you're not putting out a fire. When you put the spices on it, it's gonna smolder on top of it. So that's fine. That's mutter. Rabba says there's a problem on the cheres. Now, which malacha is it on the cheres? It's not extinguishing. So he comes up with mishum de kamayla dreifa. You're introducing something new into the world. You're adding a smell which is brand new, and that's similar to a malacha. You're introducing a new smell. Rabba v'Rab Yosef Dami Tarvayo. This could be a problem with perfume. We're talking about like deodorant or perfume. If there would ever be a problem with that, which I never heard of it. But no, I think there's a discussion about it. But it could be Meila Dreicha. That would be it, but you'd have to look into it. No, I don't think they cured the spice up there earthenware. Earthenware was hot. They were putting the spice on the hot clay, on the hot earthenware utensil, and that would smell up the fruits. Yeah, Here, you're right. Rashi says that it goes into the cheres. Why did they need the cheres to smell? Maybe because they would move it around. They would use the cheres to smell. No, they were smoking the fruits.
No, they wanted to smoke fruits to avoid
The coals, they put it on cheres.
The problem was
They're not in cheres, though.
the parents
Uh-huh.
having smell, but it's worth the maximum.
So maybe what Rashi means, maybe what it means is that the fruits themselves that get the flavor would not be a problem of moiled to get the smell. The problem is that a keli is getting the smell. That must be the pshat. Rabba v'Rabbi Yosef Damri Tarbayu Schupe Kasa Shiroi B'Yom Matava Aser. Rabba and Rabbi Yosef, they're contemporaries. They both say that to turn over a cup that has spices in it on top of silk clothing to put the smell into the clothing on Yom Tov is also my time Mishum de Kamela Dreicha. See, so Rabba that said before that there's an issue of Mela Dreicha, Rabba and Rabbi Yosef say the same thing would apply. You just put spices, doesn't say that it's hot, they're burning, or anything like that. You're just putting the spices onto the clothing, and that's considered Mela Dreicha. Gemara asks, we have a Mishnah, a Beitza, that says that if you want to smell besamim, you're allowed to squish it in your hand and pinch off the top, that you should be able to get a better smell. But you like roll it in your hand with kaitmai, or you take off the top of miriach and you can smell it. 1 second. Over there, you're also making it smell more by doing that. The besamim, crush it a little bit. So it's hasam recha mia isa. Over there, the smell was there. By sufi the kamaisa recha, you're only adding the smell. Hacha eludu the kamaila recha, but in the kalim, in the silk or in the cheres, there was no smell. Now you're putting it in for the first time, so that's considered maila recha. Rava says al gabi kacheles nami mutter, even allowed to put it on the coals. Rava is basically paskening like Shmuel. Shmuel held that this is something that's shavalakol. So if I'm allowed to cook, I'm allowed to smoke fruits. What's the difference? Mididavi abisra gumri. I can put meat onto coals. Now, what happens when I put the meat on the coals? It probably also goes out a little bit, and then it flares up, or something like that. And there was no problem because it's eichel nefesh. So too with the fragrance, it's the same thing with the smoking the fruits. Darish Rav Gavia mi Beit Kasil apischa de Beirish Galusa. Rav Gavia from Beit Kasil, we've had him before. He darshans, he gives a speech at the entrance to the house of the Reish Galusa. It says Ketura Shari. Ketura is permissible. Amalei Meimar, my Ketura. The Meimar says, what is Ketura? So there's two possibilities. Ketura could be a knot because the test in a shin change also. Like the tough in a shin, test also changes with the shin. So it would be kesher. And it could also be keturas. So iketura be they, if it's talking about the knots that are done to the sleeves or to the hem, just sort of like ruffles that they would make they would make the hem like tighter, and then it would look fancier. So if that's what you're talking about when you're telling me that you're allowed to do this on Yom Tov, Maisa Umanu, that shouldn't be allowed. That's a craftsman. That's a work of like a tailor or something. That's you shouldn't be allowed to do on Yom Tov. Ve'ila ashen, if you're talking about smoking fruits, also like a machabib, you're putting out the coals. Obviously, you're holding that. You're not allowed to do that because it's not shavuot kol. Ravashi loylam lashen. Ravashi says no. It is talking about smoking the fruits. Then mididabi abisra gumri. And it's exactly like putting the meat onto the coals, which is also permissible because it's shavel akol, because everyone enjoys it. Ikadamri, those that have the story a little different. Amalei Ameimar, my Keturah. Ameimar asks, Rav Gavia Mibeksil, what does it mean, Keturah, that you just allowed? Iketurah be day, if it's talking about the ruffles on the sleeves or the hem, that's my sumanuk, that's a craftsman's work. Ilash, and if you're dealing with smoking fruits, also the kamoila drecha, that's a problem because it's moiled. You see, you just switched the problem. We had two problems with smoking fruits. One could be that it's extinguishing, and the other one was that it was moiled, that it was moiled drecha, it was creating this new smell in the earthenware. So Amar Ravashi, he says, Anam Risan Ale. I said this to him. Mashmei the Gavarabam Nisal Nale. In the name of an important person, I said it. Loilam Lashin. Really, it's talking about to smoke the fruits. And there's no problem. So even if it's Moiled Recha, it's still no problem. It's still no problem. Because he's holding that it's Shavel Akol. What's coming out over here is that yeah, the Rashi is adding in that when I put meat on coals, that also gives a smell, and that's mutter. Right. Yeah. You see, the way we were learning before is that the issue was putting the smell into the cherith. Yisra Gumri doesn't put a smell into the cherith. Maybe it puts a smell in the house. Yeah. Yeah, to Ravashi. Yeah, the question is, I think Meimar is in the middle, though. You see Meimar? Meimar is in the middle. There was in Ravashi's days, there was a Mereimar. I don't know if you see that. Yeah, but Meimar is earlier. Okay.
We used to use this all the time. We don't stop, and now we forget.
For you.
We still have the charts. Are those the charts from in there? From the draft? Oh, okay. Okay. Well, Isin, it's not coffee. Well, Isin Gedim Mekulas, you're allowed to do this goat, according to, who was this? This was Rabbi Gamliel. He allowed this. Tanya Rabbi Yossi Eimer was taught in a brisa that Rabbi Yossi says, Mekulas, we said, it's like someone that has the armor on the side. That was the way Rashi put it, hanging on the side. So here we would have also the innards were hanging out. Some say that it was draped over the head or something. So this we learned in Pesachim. We have to this. Is like Thaddeus. To this Ishraimi from, what is it? That is. He would have the Jews of Rome eat this roasted goat on Pesach. We don't eat roasted meat on Pesach. It's only for the Beis Hamikdash. So Sholchalei, they sent to him, Mali to this after. If you weren't to this, which meant Rashi says that he was a scholar and he was also an important person. Gozarno alecha nidi, we would put you into Chayrim, we would excommunicate you. Because you're feeding the Jewish people sacrificial meat outside the temple. It says kach himself kadaita. Is it really sacrificial meat? I mean, it's not a sacrifice. It's just their dinner. So Elaima can kach it. It's similar to sacrificial meat. That was the same way that it was performed. It looks like it's sacrificial meat. Okay. It was roasted, and it was actually roasted the way that the Korban Pesach was roasted. Okay. Shleisha Devarim Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Mater. There's three things that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah allowed, and the sages forbade. Yeah, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, you know where he is on the chart? It's on the other chart, on the Tanoim chart. So he would be in the generation of Rabbi Akiva. Yeah, he is Harani mentioned Shana. He is see Rabbi Akiva in the center. Yeah, he has a star because he was the head of the yeshiva, at least temporarily, and Shabbos Shomi, right? That's the Gemara. He would switch off from Gamliel. So he allowed. He was a very important person. He was a descendant of Ezra, Azariah, right? It was a 10th generation from Ezra. So it was a Kohen. What are the three things that he allows? It says Parosa Yitzber Tzush ben Karnal. His cow, see exactly what that means, would go out with a strap, a decorative strap, like a ribbon between the horns on Shabbos. Wasn't considered carrying. See, your animals need to rest on Shabbos also. The animals need to rest. You can't put loads on them and let them carry on Shabbos. So he would allow it because he said it was considered decoration. It wasn't really carrying. It's like clothing. We've had this before in Shabbos. This is interesting. He would also allow to comb. Another word for combing is carding. At least when they comb the wool, it's called carding. It's the Hebrew as well. So he would comb the animal on Yom Tov, and this was a big. It was an iron comb that would take away the lice from the animal. And you can also use a pepper grinder. Obviously on Yom Tov, right? Rabbi Yehuda says, you're not allowed to use this comb on Yom Tov because it makes scratches in the skin of the animal, and that's not allowed. But you're allowed to use a wood comb. The wood is softer, doesn't scratch the animal. You can't use either comb, not the metal one and not the wooden one. The Gemara says, when he said he let his cow walk out. That sounds like he has one cow. Problem is, Rav said, or Rabbi Yehuda said the name of Rav, Tleisar Alfei Eglei, Habi Meiser Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Me'edri Kol Shat V'Shat. His Meiser, his tithing, was 12,000 calves every single year. So what are you talking about? That he had one cow? He had 120,000 cows, and every year he had new 120,000, and he gave a tenth of it. He gave 12,000 for Meiser. Says Tana it actually wasn't his cow. Elishel Shchentei was his neighbor's. Because he didn't protest that his neighbor's cow went out with a strap. He didn't tell the neighbor that you shouldn't do that because the sages don't allow it. He did allow it, but the sages didn't allow it. They considered it his. Oh, I'm sorry. Tleisa is 13,000. To 13, not Tracer. Tleisa 13,000. 13,000. Thank you. Yeah. Plus. Yeah, but the last is the Shalish. Okay. Mekayden as a behemoth b'yamtiv, you're allowed to comb the animal on yamtiv. Taner Rabbanan, Ezu karod ve'ezu kartzav. What is the combing and what is the other comb? Two types of combing, the metal comb and the wooden comb. So it says karod, that type of comb, which is the one that scratches the animal. Kitanim v'esim chabura. I guess it means the needles of the comb are small and that could make a scratch. But kartzav is gedolim. The needles are large of enesim chabura and it doesn't make a scratch. The Gimel Machlekes B'Davar, and there's three opinions here. Rabbi Yehuda Savar, Davar Shina Miskaven Aser. Remember, Rabbi Yehuda said that you're not allowed to use the card, you're not allowed to use the one that makes it scratch, but you're allowed to use the other one. Why are you not allowed to use the one that makes it scratch? Because he holds that even though you don't intend to scratch, but it's Davar Shina Miskaven, and that's us. Miu Karat Kitana Vaisam Chabura. In Kartzav, it's Gedolim v'Nesam Chabura v'Legoshin in Kartzav at the Karat. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't say that you make a gezerah. If you're allowed to use this, you're going to use that. He doesn't make that gezerah. So he says the one that's going to make the scratch possibly, even though that's not your intention, but it doesn't matter. There's a famous machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, where Rabbi Yehuda holds davar shina miskaven is also something that you don't intend on Shabbos is prohibited. And Rabbi Shimon holds davar shina miskaven is mutter. Shimon holds if that wasn't your intention, then it's permissible. So here I have Rabbi Yehuda who holds that it's us. Rabbanan Savri Namik Rabbi Yehuda. The rabbis also agree with Rabbi Yehuda that davar shina miskaven is us. However, they add one point because in a kartzavat karut, they just make a decree that if we allow you to use the comb that's going to scratch, the comb that doesn't scratch, you may pick up the next comb that does scratch, and that would be a problem. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said, Reb Shimon. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah also Reb Shimon, who argues with Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda and Reb Shimon, two students of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Lai, and Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. That they have a famous machlekes in Tzach Shabbos. If davar shina miskaven is mutter, Reb Shimon holds yes. Davar shina miskaven mutter. The bein karts of shari. That's why Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah allows this. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Shmuel, V'amil Amar Rav Nachman, l'chadei halacha Reb Shimon. That whole machlekes, Rabbi Yehuda and Reb Shimon. Here we have the halacha like Reb Shimon. Why? Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Maidalai. Because Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah agrees. Amalei Rabbi Rav Nachman, Rabbi says to Rav Nachman, what about, why don't you say it's like the Rabbi Yehuda? Because the Chachamim say even more than Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said that it's forbidden. The Chacham say not only is it forbidden, but you can't even use the kartzef because it's a decree, because you might come to the davar sheni miskav. Amalei Anak Reb Shimon Tzvilei. Just first of all, I hold like Reb Shimon. So that's what I meant to say. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and also Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Okay. I want to point out a very interesting Taisvus. Taisvus Tleisa Alfi Egli Habi Meiser Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. What is Meiser? Meiser is a korban. It's brought to the Beis Hamikdash. Taisvus asks, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah wasn't around by the Beis Hamikdash. He was the Nasi after Gamliel. Gamliel himself was after the korban. How could it be Meiser? Says possible answer that maybe they were still doing Meiser even after the korban. Yeah. And he says, that was in the Safranida. His answer at the end, this answer at the end is that it's actually Lav Dafka Meiser. It was a different sort of meiser. It was talking about that. That's what you have to give as a tax. If there's other answers. Yeah, but this is a meiser behema. So we're talking about animals. It could be that it was like meiser ksafim. I think other people say that. Meiser ksafim is like people tie their money, how much their earnings are, right? But that's not a carb. Right. So if he was doing that, then we can understand. Okay, we have a Mishnah, Harichaim shel pilpul and Tameya misham shleisha kelim. A pepper grinder is tamei for 3 reasons, because there's 3 parts to the grinder. Mishum kli kibel. First of all, it's a receptacle, and that makes it tamei. Mishum kli mateches. It's also metal that makes it tamei. Mishum kli kvara. It's also a seed. It's a kelim.
Picture of this.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah. So the bottom of it, let's learn the Beitza. Tana, we'll start on the Beitza. Tachtaina mishum kli kibel. The bottom of it catches the crushed pepper. Emtsayis mishum kli kvara. The middle part, it sifts from the small, it lets the small pieces out. And el yoina mishum kli mateches. The upper part is metal. Now, even though it's not a receptacle, the upper part, but any metal it gives off tumah. So the bottom could be wood, and wood that's receptacle is tumah. The metal doesn't need to be a receptacle to be tumah. And the middle is some sort of netting. So whether it's metal or not, but it's considered has a usage. It's considered a cable. Okay. The next Mishnah says egla, agala shall cotton. It's mea medras. It's like a stroller, but it's also a toy. It was something that the child would play with. And when he tells us B'Shabbos, first of all, it's tummy medras. Tummy medras means that it's considered a chair or a cushion, that if a zav sits on it, it becomes tummy. So if the child would be a zav, it would become tummy medras. Now, tumas medras has a stringency that the chair gets the same tumah as the person. So like an abatum. And when he tells us B'Shabbos, and you're allowed to use a wagon on Shabbos. However, if you're pushing it outside, you have to push it over cloth. Kalim would mean you push it over a mat of some sort, but not onto the ground itself. Rabbi Yehuda says you can't pull anything. The only thing that you're allowed to pull is the wagon, because the wagon, with Neshi Kaveshes, the wagon doesn't uproot the dirt that's there to make a groove, which would be considered plowing. The wagon just presses it down. So the problem, according to Rabbi Yehuda, is plowing, and you're just pressing it down. That's not a problem. And according to the Chacham, there's a problem just with pressing it down. Or maybe they hold that it does more than that. The Chacham hold that it could uproot it also. Okay, let's go to the Gemara. It says, Gola shall cut into me a medrash. The samech even okay, because it supports it. So therefore, it's considered a cheer. When he tells B'Shabbos mishum dekateres keli ala, it's not considered muktzah. It's considered a keli, so you're allowed to use it. Beinin negrer sel al gabi kelim, and it's only drawn on top of cloth, or the carpet or something, or sheets. Al gabi kelim al gabi karka loy. You can't pull it on the ground. Why not? My timer, the kabit charitz, because it's making a groove in the ground. Mani, who holds that this would be an issue? It has to be Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehudi, davar she'eino miskaven is aser. You're not intending to plow. You're intending to play with the wagon. It happens to be that it's plowing along the side, but that wasn't your intention. Now, who holds that something that's not your intention is aser? That's Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon Amar davar she'eino miskaven mutter, because according to Rabbi Shimon that would be permissible. The Tanya or the Tanan. Rabbi Shimon, I'm a girl the mita kisa b'saf. So Rabbi Shimon holds you're allowed to pull a bed, a chair, and a bench. As long as your intention was not to plow. So according to Rabbi Shimon, this would be perfectly fine. Okay, so we've decided that the beginning of our Mishnah, Negrera Sel al Gabi Kalim, is Rabbi Yehuda. So let's continue the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, the only thing you're allowed to pull, according to Rabbi Yehuda, is the wagon. So Rabbi Yehuda holds in the beginning of the Mishnah that you're not allowed to pull the wagon. In the end of the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda holds you're allowed to pull the wagon. It doesn't make a group. It only presses it down. So now what's going on over here? We have a contradiction on what the wagon does. If it would make a charitz, then Rabbi Yehuda would forbid it. And the beginning of the Mishnah says that it makes a charitz, and it's forbidden. That would be the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. So it says straight to Rabbi Yehuda. You're right. There's two students that are saying this, and they're following Rabbi Yehuda's opinion that says that there's a problem with the davar she'eino miskaven. But one of them says that the wagon is going to roll, and it's not going to be a problem. The other one says that they have an old stroller, and the wheels get stuck. And when they're pushing it, it starts to pull up dirt, right? So those are two opinions and two versions of what Rabbi Yehuda held regarding the wagon. Let's leave it there.
So, I am not even asking that Rabbi Yehuda went in cats.
Shikoya, Rabbi. Have a good day.
Good day, good mayat.
Rabbi, quick question.
Yeah.
How could Rabbi Gamliel have his cow or the neighbor's cow do something that the Chachamim don't permit?
Yeah. And Rabbi Elizabeth Azariah himself allowed it,
Or
right? It was Rabbi Elizabeth Azariah.
okay, sorry. I understand having an opinion that's different from the Chachamim, but if Chachamim are saying prohibit it, how can he actually do it?
Yeah. There's a Gemara that says that he fasted afterwards,
Oh,
and he fasted until his teeth turned black, because he could have protested and he didn't.